Hello, my name is Francis Fox. I'm a trained remote viewer, also trained in interspecies communication, which nobody pays attention to right now, but they will relatively soon when we start to have more happenings having to do with aliens. But for now, let's deal with mundane things that have to do with the physical dimension. And let's go ahead and go into the map that I drew today. I never know what it is that is going to come out, because what's going to come out is what's in the other dimensions moving forward into this dimension. So if there's good news on the map, that means good news for those of you that don't believe in other dimensions, and good news having to do with news. If it looks god awful on the map, that means you got a problem you need to take care of, and you may not know it yet, but it is giving you time. It's so much easier to take care of issues that are still in the other dimensions and have not manifested as reality on the physical dimension. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. So let's do the map. Okay, well, at the center we see a heart, and the color is orange, which is the color of the second energy center, which is the sacral, which is sacred. It's where our connection to God is, it's where our sexuality is, our manifestation, and our creativeness. If you are very creative, like you're a producer in a TV show, um, then you may have a lower sex drive, because that chakra has only 100% of sacral energies. And so when you use it in creativity, like as a producer on TV, you won't have as much having to do with sex or having to do with manifestation, because you're creating. So that's just an important thing to remember. I did not expect that. I've never drawn, sketched the heart. I have sketched it in the center of the United States, never color orange, where this is a good thing. And then the frequencies that the United States is in are orange. First time I've done that. That's also sacred. Okay, yes, I know what's going on in the physical dimension. Guess what? I am responsible to give you what it is that I get. And if something is wrong and it shows up on the physical dimension, then I look into it and find out what happened between what was in the other dimensions and it didn't make it to the physical, or it was much worse than the physical. But I have to sketch what I get, and this is what I get. The Galactic Federation configuration is there. It's stronger than it was yesterday. It's not as strong as I would like it to see. Florida, total healing. The color green is the color healing and the color of the heart chakra. California, totally healing. And then we have the Mayan pyramids. Okay, let's go into the whole thing of how can it be like that in California, healing, when you've got riots? Well, the riots are in the physical dimension. I'm not sketching the physical. But guess what? Those people are acting out their emotions. They're processing. They're emoting. They're not containing. It's when you contain that you cause natural catastrophes, such as earthquakes, new fault lines, tsunamis. When you emote, you cause disasters on the physical dimension, but they're so much easier to take care of than if enough people don't emote, they're not allowed to emote, or they decide it's not elegant to emote. And then you have something like what happened after 9/11 that has a new fault line, and you can look it up because science found that about 10 years or 15 years after I said that it had happened. So this looks really good. Now, there is a medical, or was a medical doctor in Germany that many, many years ago I found out about, who said that when you get sick, you are actually in a process of healing. And I thought, that's weird, but I kind of instinctively trusted what was being said. So when you get a mess, like if there's a couple that get along really well, then all of a sudden they start to fight and whatever. Well, what's that? they are detoxifying what's inside of them and what is making the relationship sick with that fighting. That got out. Yeah, but that doesn't look good. No, it doesn't. Detoxes are not attractive. If you have food that is not good for you, you can get a stomach ache, whatever. You can vomit. The vomiting doesn't mean you're sick. The vomiting means there's something you had to get rid of. It's a detox. I'm going to say that California is into a process of detox of energies that were there from before. This is not new. There's a lot of really good things happening. And then we see the bad stuff and we go, oh my God, well, I don't know. We're going to make it. I'm going to say that, yeah, we're going to make it. I'm going to say that we're going to make it. If people, now, we do have a lot of people working on balancing the elements. I don't really know what's going on with the riots because I don't know how old those photographs are that are coming out having to do with the riots in California, but we have several thousand people working on cooling down California. And California looks like it cooled down. We also had people working on the conflict between Elon and Trump cool down. We also had people working on this. Now, if we had even more people, it would be even more effective. But something is working. It's working. And the evidence we will have not today or tomorrow, but on the 14th, they're calling for demonstrations, and now they're in like I don't know how many places. First, initially, it was like 5 cities. So I said that's easy. We get the map, and my group, the Mantrista movement, we go ahead and we cool that all down in advance, and then that day. But now it's like dozens and dozens of cities. So basically, the whole map needs to be cooled down. The map of the United States. So we're getting a map, a graphic done up. Because when I tried to do it myself, putting the little cubes of ice on top of the map of the United States, it looked really amateurish because I'm not good at that. Even though I have to say I'm really enjoying when I do those graphics. I really enjoy it. I used to work with my hands a lot, and it was really that's how I started in business, making costume jewelry. And so we're going to be working on now in terms of Fox protocols. And by the way, on my website, I'm not sure it's up yet, but the Fox protocols for the riots is up on my website. Now I'm going to add this map that is getting done between today and tomorrow. But it's still the same thing. You do the mantra, even though we hate and there's nothing we can do, I love and accept myself, or please God help us with our intention to create a miraculous purification of the excess fire and hatred. And then you visualize cooling down the whole country at this point because there's potential in the whole country. So you just do the whole country and you just visualize cascading cold water. If you're very active, you visualize yourself like you're a fireman and you've got a hose, a big hose, and it's freezing water and you're spraying the entire country. Or you can put the whole country in an igloo and it will cool it down. And then you just keep going back to it every few minutes, every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours. You keep going back to it. Meanwhile, also put a block of ice in your head or see yourself in an igloo. Now, I have been negligent. I'm so busy being a martyr that I haven't taken care of myself. So I have a block of ice in my head now. I don't know if you could see it, but honestly, I didn't have it until several days ago when I said, don't approach me with any kind of an offer, friendship, a contract. I'm not looking for a job. I want interesting contracts. So if somebody, I think somebody yesterday was watching me and they said, she's like auditioning. And I said, I feel like I'm auditioning. I think I was picking up what somebody else was feeling when I was speaking. I'm not auditioning. Money doesn't really move me very much, but I am excited about the contracts that I will be getting. But if I was going to be really auditioning for money, I would be talking about the work that I've done in mines and with interesting things like that. And I don't really talk about that very much. I don't think there's much money having to do with any kind of government work. So, am I auditioning? I'm doing what I love. Am I Miss Drama Queen? Probably, but that's okay. Now, I lost my train of thought. I want to go back to the cannabis. The CIA says cannabis is excellent, having to do with repairing from mind control. Well, did we find out why they turned cannabis into the food for the devil instead of an herb that actually makes less food available for the devil because it reduces fire and the devil's food is fire? I think I told you yesterday when the war in Iraq, is what we have to do is we just have to airdrop marijuana in the whole country, and there'll be no fighting. Of course, at that point, we didn't really know that it was we were starting it. It wasn't the people in Iraq. Whatever. So we need to really move on this cannabis thing because the country will be happier. Here's the trick. The Dolphins told me there's two reasons why they went after the cannabis in terms of the United States. Kids that smoke and people that take cannabis, they don't make good soldiers, which means they're not fighters, which is you all know that's the truth. They're also not good shoppers. They don't do compulsive shopping. So the government, let's say the military industrial complex, I'm going to stop saying the government, okay? Who knows? Maybe one day I will get a government contract and then I would have talked about me. The military industrial complex wants people to be compulsive shoppers, which is why you had the built in obsolescence in terms of our appliances. When I found that out, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, that they build appliances only to last like 15 years, 20 years, 12 years, why would you build in the end date for something? You're supposed to have it last as long as possible. No, built in obsolescence. That's been part of our society. So cannabis doesn't make for compulsive shoppers. Compulsive shoppers is what has us buying all that cheap stuff from China. It's also turned us into kind of a materialistic society. So cannabis is not approved by the bad guys. They don't want people to have it because it doesn't make good shoppers and it doesn't make good soldiers. Well, honestly, I would prefer that everybody in the world not have the characteristics of a good soldier. Soldiers are for war. We're going into the age of Aquarius. We're supposed to be dancing together and having sex and hanging out, regardless of what the other person is, has, doesn't have, like little flower children. So we need to get the cannabis approved immediately with no restrictions, not going through like Florida. You have to, every 6 months, you have to call a doctor, have a 2-second phone call. How are you doing? Okay, fine. We'll sign it again. You pick up your card or you don't pick up your card. And meanwhile, it's much more expensive than it would have been. And it's really ridiculous. Like parsley. Let us legal. We are going to control parsley. It's the vegetable? Why would you do that? Well, it's got some superpowers. Oh, I'm not sure I told you maple syrup. Somebody said, do I drink it or do I put it? No, you put it in your food. Maple syrup is very good for the development of your third eye. I don't know why. I didn't ask the dolphins why, but it's very good for your third eye. So maple syrup, start substituting sugars for maple syrup. Of course, If we were before Trump, they would figure out something about maple syrup so that you can't have it. Because if the fluoride is not doing its job and knocking out your third eye, which by the way is where your wisdom is, then let's make sure they don't get maple syrup. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. So, so the two things that the CIA, from what I have seen in different posts, mainly on X, that they say is really good if you don't want to be mind controlled is cannabis and that other one, niacinamide, niacin with MIDE at the end. Well, the whole Diddy thing, all those people were mind controlled. Well, they were blackmailed. Yes, I know. I was blackmailed too. They were mind controlled. All those rituals, all that stuff, what's in the food, it's mind controlled. So all the cults are mind control. The Satanism, which I think is what might be hidden in the Epstein thing, I think maybe the whole satanic stuff is going to come out and everybody's going to be, because they don't really believe that stuff. It's been around forever. Look at the Catholic Church. Drink the blood of Christ, eat the bread of Christ. Well, that doesn't count. Yeah, that does count actually. There's a reason why that's there. And I'm not saying that they worship Satan. What I'm saying is that black magic is very real. Magic is very real. What I'm here is to teach you magic. Right now, I'm spending entirely too much time on politics. Um, but I am organizing myself to be able to have that be my main focus. Of course, I need to survive to do that. So I need for the politics to get, to get this all kind of under control so that I can do just the creative stuff and the whole white magic thing, which, as I have always said, the place where I learned the most about magic, which for me would be white magic, was witnessing through remote viewing my wealthy clients initially, and now all my followers and the stuff that's done to me, witnessing what the black magicians do. And my reaction initially was, God, that's so creative. Such as getting your picture, folding it up, and sticking it in the wheel of a car, and then having the intention that every time that wheel rolls, that the person who's in that picture is going to get really dizzy and not know what's going on. Wow, that's really creative. That and a gazillion other things. And then burying you in actual cemeteries where you get the energy of death. But you also, when you get buried, that's the earth element. So you don't even have to go to a cemetery. You just bury somebody, your little doll, lot of box, a lot of earth, 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 earth. You added too much earth energy. So the person is going to be like a couch potato. You need the four elements. You need the fire, the water, the air, and the earth. The earth grounds you. If you have too much, you end up, being like flat. You get flattened. Also, people can't see you. I don't know how many black magic little jobs, they call them trabajos, jobs in Spanish. Black magic curses have been put on me that have to do with burials. I still have a lot of them, some of which I'm not even bothering touching, because even if I could go out, it's really not appropriate right now for me to be out there when the bad guys still, when the Wild West is still going on in Miami and in other parts of the United States. So the sheriff is going to come into town at some point, and they may be already picking up the people, but it's not all finished. So being unburied is not going to do that much for me. When my sales go down, which they have for the last 2 months, and less people, whatever, I know that somebody or several people have done black magic having to do with burials. And then it's like, what happened? What happened to everybody? Why does everything feel dead? So just by listening to me, you're learning some stuff. And then you will understand that if you're feeling like, oh my God, I don't even want to move, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody did black magic, but maybe you need to go to the beach or next to a river and watch water moving. And you will pick up the energy of movement, or being a place where there's a lot of wind, you'll pick up movement. Okay. I don't think I have much more to say today. I have Today I was very disoriented, and so my enemies, you'll be glad to know that you accomplished your mission of disorienting me to the point where I didn't know it was Wednesday and I had an event at 2 and I completely forgot the event. But I was having a hard time pulling myself together because at night I get a lot of psychotronic attacks and from several places, not just from one place. So we are probably at crunch time having to do with the bad guys. And so anybody who is into politics, Trump, Elon, everybody else, whatever, you're probably getting heavily hit right now with the psychotronic weapons. So for those of you that haven't been here or haven't heard all my chats, I hate it. Um, um, my followers are saying on the chat that they're working on cooling down the extra fire in California, which is thank you. Yes, we are giving credit to the mantritas because I think the credit is due. So, what was I saying? Remind me of what I was saying because I don't remember. I already did 22 minutes, so we're fine. I don't think unless somebody particular wants, I don't know, Canada gone. I don't think I said this. What's going on with Canada? Not a good thing. And I just realized this part of the United States, which I said that there was, and there's not happening anymore, that there were ETs coming in through this part of the United States. This corresponds to the left side of the head in the human body. And that's where that portal is, the Rudra portal, um, which is the portal via which we entered into the physical dimension of planet Earth. But it's a portal. It's the first part of our system that's open to the galactic. Um, and galactic, like galactic beings, galactic. And so it kind of makes sense that that's where previously, and I don't have the maps right here, we had a stream of energy from ETs coming in. That makes sense. Then the opposite side was the prosperity, and the black magic is gone from there, which is really, really good. And then remember, this section is the helpful friends section of the United States. So the fight between Elon and Trump was not good for world order, for world peace, for relationships in terms of friends. And I didn't sketch Mexico, but I have a petition to make here. Being it that I do have several governments who listen, and that's a fact. And I wasn't the one who said it, but all my followers are, or most of them are very psychic, and they've said it during the chats. The United States is Cancer. Cancer is a sign that has to do with home and family, um, and security and insecurity, because I'm a Cancer. It's a water sign, a lot of emotions. And Cancer right now, I just realized that, is going into an incredible astrological phase of incredible. Oh, I just realized that. So every time I'm looking at anything in astrology and all those tarot card readers, where I entertain myself watching what they're doing until I can get out my front door, every time, everything I'm hearing about Cancer applies to the United States. Apparently, the Cancers, country or people, are coming into lots of money. winning mysteriously over the enemies like nobody can understand that. How weren't we couldn't take the cancer person down. Me, the United States, Colombia is also cancer. Okay, thank you, Luz. I'll go back to that now. So the United States is going into an incredible cycle. I never seen anything like that. And even the astrologers and the tarot readers are saying the same thing. I've never seen anything like this. This is crazy. Cancer wasn't supposed to make it. There was too many enemies. And cancer's not only making it, cancer's making it to the top. So there we go again. So you know what? La loca no está tan loca. What did I just say in Spanish? The crazy lady? She's not so crazy. I had never made the connection. But why did I start with the thing with cancer? Mexico is Virgo. Slit your wrists if you're a Virgo. It's an earth sign. Very good combination with Cancer, because Cancer is water, and um, earth and water get together and they create. From the beginning, with the whole stuff with Mexico, I went, I think Trump is really going to I think he really likes this lady who's the president of Mexico. She's very serious. She's Jewish. I like her. And I've picked up that he liked her. Her country is Virgo. Virgos are not going through a nice place. Virgos are always buried. They can't move. They recycle in the same place, same place. Good people, but can we please be patient? Can we offer a way out to the president of Mexico who said stuff that I don't think she should have said? Okay, I agree. Virgos also have, can I say a bad word here? Self-esteem issues. Terrible self-esteem issues. Virgos. So a country that is Virgo is going to have tremendous self-esteem issues, which means that if they make a mistake and you highlight it, all they want to do is kill themselves, but they can't kill themselves. So they're going, whatever, I don't know. So can we please, being it that the Mexicans, the Mayans, mainly Mexicans, were the only ones who transitioned successfully, having to do with human evolution. They're very baseline. These are Mayan temples. Can we take that into consideration when we're dealing with Mexico? Also, a lot of my followers are Mexican. They're very good and they're very loyal and they're very good psychics. Too many of them are into black magic, but that's the case with all the countries um, um, in Latin America. Too many, which is why we have to come up with a solution, an option, which is the white magic. Because if there's only one thing available and you've got a big problem and that's a habit, let's give them another solution to it. And we are in an era in which we are supposed to be accessing our superpowers, magic, the whole nine yards. So can we please not allow the spouting off, which is only spouting off, because I don't think they have the power. Can we not allow that to affect us? Can we just allow it? Which brings me to something that I learned a long time ago, many decades ago. Like I would work with people, and I remember one person in particular. What's going on? My husband did that, and I looked at it and I said this. She said, "Well, I'm gonna, and then I guess I have to change this." And I said, "I think it would be a good idea to change." Well, but he's not gonna like it. And then I said to her something that I would like to say. When you make a change, you need to allow people the time to react to the change and then to adjust to the change. Like a space of time. You made the change. Okay, you were probably right. That's why you made the change. You need to make the change. Can we give the other person some leeway in terms of their reaction of anger and stupid stuff, whatever, like what the head of the Senate in Mexico just said, did a map and part of California now belongs to Mexico. Can we allow them their reaction? Just step back and go, they have to react. Emote, remember? You actually want them to emote. You don't want them to swallow what they're feeling that in your physical body that causes cancer and stroke and skin issues. Da, da. And internationally, it can be, well, I said it, I can't back down now. How do I do that? So we need to allow other countries, and right now I'm talking about Mexico and the stuff that's going on. We need to allow people a space of time. What's happening in the United States, the changes that Trump is making are shocking. And if you look at them without knowing anything, you go, well, this guy, he went nuts. And why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? But then if you go deeper, you go, you know what? That's not such a bad idea. And then you go, wow, how did he know that so much in advance? And no wonder we didn't like it. We didn't have that information. We didn't understand it. We didn't accept it. The whole thing with the immigration. When Trump started in with the whole immigration thing, I was like, it was one of the reasons I didn't like Trump. I was an illegal immigrant twice, handled by the military industrial complex, the military. Okay, they did it, but whatever. I didn't know that. Whatever. And I know, no, because I know a lot of immigrants. I'm an immigrant. A lot of I've worked with, hired, paid a lot of illegal immigrants through the decades. I didn't like that. This is not nice to people. And then as the years went by, and then we saw the whole thing with, I remember I wrote a book and somebody from Univision said, what are you going to say about immigration? I'm not going to say anything about it. Why would I talk about that? I wasn't aware. And then the days, weeks, months, years went by, and it turns out that he knew something we didn't know. Because most Hispanics in the United States, from what I understand, are in agreement that this can't continue. The trick is, how do we get this fixed? But it's such a big problem. But it's not a big problem because of Trump. It's a big problem because of other people. And the other people are not going to clean up their mess because they did it purposefully, it would appear. So we have to allow people a reaction because they don't have the same information. They don't have the same wisdom. And they are not responsible for this big problem that we have having to do with immigration. I mean, the stuff that's coming out that Elon is unmasking having to do with the money that's going to illegal immigrants, where they get a bigger Social Security check than I get? How did that happen? I mean, I was going to say, I'm not begrudging. That's totally inappropriate for me to say that. It's not correct that that be happening. Now, if we all knew that before, we wouldn't be in this place. But there's so much that has been hidden. Anyway, I'm going on, and we don't need to go on and on. So the whole psychotronic attacks. Today, I got up and I was not the same person because of the psychotronic attacks. I forgot an event that I've been given for several years, Wednesdays too. I didn't know it was Wednesday. I ate food I shouldn't have eaten. I did stuff I shouldn't have done. Okay, what's the trick here? In Cuba, you cannot get a medical degree without studying psychotronic weapons and its effect on humans. It's not for you to use psychotronic weapons against other people. It's for the doctors to be able to identify people's symptoms that they might be due to psychotronic weapons. The new war is not killing people's body, it's controlling their minds, and you can control it through psychotronic weapons. The sending of frequencies, not just microwave, there must be others, I don't know. So I think that needs to be looked at, and I think that those locations, that those machines are, and they're not big machines. They're not large. There's several in Miami. Actually, there was one in downtown Coconut Grove. I'm in Coconut Grove. There was one in downtown Coconut Grove at the top of the Mayfair Hotel. This is the first time I'm saying this, okay? Lightning is not going to strike me down. Military industrial complex probably would like to, but they're not going to at this point. One of those machines was at the top of that hotel. So it was a beautiful hotel right there close to the water, several blocks from here. And one night in Miami, there were a lot of fighter jets circling Miami, and then they would go to they would circle Miami. And I remember it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I remember getting out, waking up and going, "What is that?" And I finally got up and I went, "Okay, so this is going to be the end, and I'm going to be by myself," because it was the noise and it didn't stop. And it was obviously planes above, but not the regular planes. So the next day I went out, and when I was driving back home, there was a lot of police cars about half a block from my home. And I stopped, and and I said, "What happens?" "No, somebody, it was, breaking and entering." I said, "Okay." I said, "By the way, what happened last night with all those planes?" He said, "Well, we're not really sure, but things got really wild because one of the planes went all the way to the Everglades and nobody knew what was going on." Um, and and it was this part of the information I'm not going to remember the sequence well. But the day before I had driven by, because it's the back road to from the Mayfair. And the Mayfair at that point was, I think, already closed down. And there was this guy walking out of there, and he was dressed like an Arab with all this white stuff, like the Arab's dress. And I'm a psychic, and I get information that I'm not even don't even know what the information is. And I looked at him. I was driving, so I didn't look at him close up. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And then whatever. And then that night I wake up, and the next day I'm speaking to the police officer. So he says, "Yeah, the problem is that they were flying, they would, go over the Everglades and come back." And I said, "What was that about?" He said, "Yeah, I don't know." It it must have been him that told me, because there was no other way I would have known. They dropped something at the Mayfair Hotel, people, and then military people, they went from there to, I guess it's Peacock Park. And the important thing about the story that I'm telling you, I think what they were doing was removing that machine, Psychotronics machine. I got on social media. I wasn't an expert at that point, but I got on. There wasn't anything. There was one thing on the internet. I'm talking huge. The length of time and the sound of all those airplanes. And the next day I spoke to somebody, and they said, "Yeah, we kind of heard," but and then the person said to me, "You know what's interesting? Nobody's talking about it, and nobody remembers, or they remember, but then they don't remember." So the memory of people in Miami was wiped out, so that we wouldn't remember that we had fighter jets circling Miami. So this psychotronic weapons, and that was some kind of a confrontation. This was under Obama. That I do remember. Psychotronic weapons is big. It wipes out your memory. It's got to augment bipolar and all the rest of that. It changes your personality. It makes you weak-willed. It makes you sick. It can eventually kill you. Why in Cuba, an underdeveloped country, do the medical doctors have to study that? And here, you're not even allowed to talk about it without putting yourself in danger. Frequency wars. Okay, so we can do a mantra. Give me a second. And so when I get under these attacks, I feel very impotent. It's very angering, but I'm not able to hold the anger. It's mainly impotence, so it makes you weak-willed. Oh, let me put this up just because I want to for a second. Isn't that nice? We did that, I guess, last week. I have no idea. So, on the 14th, we have riots, potentially, but we don't have to have them. And starting tomorrow, we will start to work. And right now, just think of those images and just think of that all over the United States and then all over the world. One of the issues with Mexico, by the way, even with my group, we've never been able to get the fire down. Now, Mexico could be absorbing the fire from other countries. That's the problem. And my last thing, and then we quit because I have an event now. Many years ago, I went to a conference right in the beginning of when I talked publicly about I've been trained as a psychic spy and all the rest of that. I went to a conference and there was a medical doctor from Harvard, and she was doing something having a little bit to do with with intuition. Oh, you don't use the word psychic in universities. Oh no, my God, no, no. She didn't say psychic. She said intuition. So she started to tell a series of stories, and she said that she had a cat and that she herself had had two or three kind of unusual illnesses, and that each time her cat caught the same illness. Now, we know that if somebody throws a curse at you, you may have a pet that ends up dying, or one of your children can take it on. And it's because spiritually they're looking to defend you. But countries take on the excess fire, such as when Israel was made a country, 1948. I believe it was 6 weeks after Israel got Jerusalem, whatever. Colombia had an incident called El Bogotazo, and a level of violence started in Colombia that Colombia had never had before. Colombia is Cancer. They're a peaceful country. Not since then. So many, many years later, I was having dinner with two very wealthy people from Venezuela, somebody who was the ambassador from Colombia to, I don't know if it was Jerusalem, but she was one of the ones that was supervising peace negotiations with the people that were fighting in Colombia, the two different guerrillas and whatever. And I said that the Bogotazo was due to Colombia spiritually taking on the excess fire that was produced when Israel was made a state. And that if Colombia had not done that, there would have been a world war. Colombia ended up looking really, really bad, like they were animals. And then after that came the whole thing with the cocaine and Colombians. Oh my God, they saved us. They took on that fire from one day to the next. Colombia exploded with the violence that was weird. But when you're in the middle of all that violence, you're not going, this is weird. You're fighting for survival. We can't reduce the fire in Mexico. And we have not had that happen. We worked on Peru, which is Mexico taking on the excess fire of the United States? I think I'm going to check and I think we're going to find out yes. And what does that mean? The reason why Jesus Christ said, don't judge, because what you're seeing is not necessarily what's really going on. Why can't we reduce the fire in Mexico? They're not a fire country, they're an earth country. So, this whole thing with understanding the elements at the level of countries, which I don't think people have really done before, at the level of people, yes, that's Chinese medicine. That's Ayurveda. They don't talk about it with the patients in this country because they don't know. And I don't even know if they talk about it in their countries. They just do it. You're low on something and they'll give you a food that gives you that element that balances out whatever. Um, but I think I'm going to look it up. I'm going to ask the dolphins, why can't we put out the fire in Mexico? Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that because I've got things to do. Okay? We'll see you back. And thank you for watching. Bye.